Hi, I'm Greg Botting, and I'm a blind adult who volunteered to show you some stuff today. So we're going to be working on some knife skills. I've got an apple here that I've washed, and I'm left-handed, so I have the knife in my left hand. I'm putting the blade next to where the core is roughly. I've got my hand on the knife blade. I've used my right hand to find where the blade is to match it up with the core, and then I'm putting my hand on top of the knife blade, keeping my fingers and thumb away from the actual blade so that I can press down like that. So we have an apple which needs to get some core removed from it, so I've got it facing up, and I'm putting the knife next to the core using my right hand as a guide. I've got my finger next to the knife blade, so I move my hand to the top of the knife, and that's one side, and I flipped the apple slice part around, and I do the same thing on the other side, and then I do that because there are multiple pieces that you want to get the core away from. And that should do for that piece. I'm just tossing the core in the sink. So I've got the apple up right now. I'm going to slide my knife down the side by the core here, like that. And I don't think there's any core there, so that will go in the pile of apple pieces that have already been cut away from the core. I've rotated the apple so that I can get to a larger section, and I press down. Now there was some resistance there. That's because there's probably core, and yes, there is. So I'm going to cut away from the core just like I did earlier, and left, and right, and then cut the piece from the core there, and then last piece, I think. Yes, last little bit. And there we go. You don't get it as much apple as you would normally if you were a sighted person cutting away from the core, but what you do get is a nice way of getting the core out without being dangerous. I'm going to eat one of these pieces. I love apples. They're so healthy and so easy. So I've moved all the little apple pieces off of my plate here. Let me finish this piece before I keep going. Delicious. So, what I want to show you now, this is an apple core. This little device, I don't use this a whole ton, but I do use it sometimes if I don't want to bother with using the knife to cut the core out. So, what this does is, it goes over the apple, like this. You have to make sure that your apple is up. It's best if it's straight, but if it rotates, that's okay. At least I think it is. Other people disagree with me. So you want to center the core over your apple, and there are 8 little sections. Yes, 8 of them. So this cores and slices your apple, although you still have to deal with some core. It's not perfect. So you make sure that the center of the apple core is over the apple, core, and there are two handles on either side, and you press down, and it takes a pretty decent amount of force. Here we go, that's better. And then the slices get stuck into the little slots here, and as you may or may not be able to tell, I accidentally cored my apple crooked, so the core came out crooked, like that, but I don't think that's too much of a problem. I'm just going to rinse off this core, because I'm a little OCD about that sometimes. So I've got a dish rag here on the left side of the sink that I just put the core into. Now, these slices, some of them won't have core, but some of them will. So you need to inspect your slices to make sure you got the core out. And because it went kind of crooked, it looks like all of these, I'm now picking apart the slices. It looks like 3 of these have core. So we do this just like we did earlier. Cut the slice left, and then flip it around, left again, cut it away from the core, put the core in the sink, and we do this again, left. Now I've got my thumb on the slice to tell where the core is, and to also make sure that the knife gets where I want it, but I make sure that my thumb is not touching the actual blade part of the knife, because that's dangerous. I could cut myself, and that wouldn't be good. So we've got that, and one last slice. Like that. Oh, there's actual more core than I thought there was. You want to feel with your fingers for where the core is, so I'm going to actually just slice all of that off, and then, yeah, unfortunately I don't think we can salvage this half of that slice, but that's okay. Sometimes you win some, you lose some. Well, that's apple coring and cutting. I'm going to rinse off this knife and then eat my apples.